So this is a really good statement of what Belichick, the coach, said. He said, "This is not a collection of talent. The team is not a collection of talent. It's a team that's assembled to fit together and work as a team to win." So that's where that Lawyer Malloy was a great player, but they found a guy that would be better for the team. And what they said, what he said to him, what they said about the Harrison guy that came in is like, actually, this is what happened. So he knocked a guy out in his own team when he was playing in San Diego, I think it was, in warm-ups in a game with a hit. And so he got sitting across like this at an interview. Maybe he's going to sign with the New England Patriots. So they're discussing it, and Coach Belichick goes, "So I saw you knock that guy out in warm-up." And he goes, how the hell would you see that? And what he realizes, this coach notices everything, like everything, all the little things. And he goes, "I'm signing right here. This guy knows what he's doing." But the point of that is Belichick was like, "I need a guy that's going to push my players. And as good as this other player is, I need this mental case to come into practice and keep everybody so sharp and not give a rip what anybody thinks." And that's what his attitude was, to make this team better. And that's what they got out of it. So it's not the best safety. So let's say in hockey, the best centerman doesn't mean that that's the best fit for your team, right? And you might need someone does something a little bit different that brings another element, right? To bring everybody up. Might be a leadership quality. It might be whatever. So this goes to what we were talking about, and I've never said it this way because I actually never, I couldn't put the words together. Is when you go to a super team and you're playing in the big cities, and you go, okay, now we need two more guys. We haven't lost a game in 2 years. Why do we need to make our team better? It doesn't mean that they're the best team. It's the best fit. Then they lose to, they can lose to a lower level team that has something else. That collection of players doesn't necessarily mean it's the best thing. Yep. The best teams are going to be teams that have different roles and people accept different roles. And that was the other thing that Rodney Harrison said. He said, I was not playing football to make friends. I was there to win. And I didn't care if you liked it or not. I don't care. I'm here to win and do my thing and to compete every single day in practice. And this team would be like, they were talking in the documentary. It's like guys would walk out of the, see each other in the hallways or whatever and say, "Hey, did you do video yet?" He goes, "Oh yeah, I did 2 hours there." He goes, "Oh yeah, I did 3." And it was like constant. "Oh, you're leaving the gym already? What'd you eat today?" And it was constantly about raising the tide.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
yeah, and then compete every day. And he said the reason that it's important to compete every day, he goes, because Rodney Harrison extended his career a few years. He was about ready to go. And he said, "I competed so hard every day because you never know who's knocking on the door." He goes, "There's always someone knocking."
Yeah.
And he goes, "I was competing until someone knocked that door down." It's such a good documentary. So if you can't read, or if you don't have the time to read, or you're not interested in reading, this is a really good place to start. And it's just so good for parents, for coaches, for players. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, one thought I had, bringing in the competitive guy. You ever see the Rocket Richard movie? It came out.
I don't think I've seen it. Maybe.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember I've seen it a few times. And there's a moment where the Canadian, like when he started playing for Montreal, the Canadians were just not good.
Right.
And so he was same kind of story. He didn't come in as like a superstar from the movie. Maybe he was, but from the way the movie presented it is he was a top player, but he wasn't like a superstar. And a lot of teams are skeptical about him because he had been injured before.
Okay.
So they thought Montreal was nervous about signing him because he had some injuries. So anyways, the one scene in the movie that sticks out, reminds me of what you're talking about, is the coach comes in and tells him he's scratched in front of the team, and he goes over and rips the stick rack down. Like he's getting changed when the coach comes in and tells him he's scratched. So he puts his shirt back on, goes and he grabs the stick rack and he chucks it, like all the sticks all over the dressing room, whatever. And the coach just like, as he throws a tantrum walking out, he was just saying to the team, like, "That's what I want. Like, I need some jam. Like, somebody give me something," right? This guy's got jam, and he did it on purpose to show the team a message. I'm not saying throwing a temper tantrum is the best thing to do ever, but you get the point, right? He's trying to send a message, and he was legit. He's a competitor. Pissed. He's a competitor, and it's like this guy was legit pissed off that he doesn't get to go out there and do battle, because he was one of those guys, and I'm too young to I never got to see him play, but he was everything. He scored goals. He got in fights. He was
Yeah.
he was a competitor. You know,
Yeah.
and that reminded me of that. And then the other thing is there's a young team around here, just to the point of the super teams.
Yeah.
That the guys we've heard a lot about, and they were one of those teams that they hadn't lost a game. You know, they had assembled. They had brought in guys from out of town. They were doing some like building type things or housing kids so
Bringing
that they could
people
have
in.
bringing people in.
Yeah.
That great, or on paper great coach that played in the NHL and all this kind of stuff. And they had, I don't think they lost one game. I think they won their final game like 7-1 for their league or
Yeah.
something. Then they went to this bigger tournament, but that had a whole bunch of teams from all over the place, and they ended
Cross
up finishing
Canada, even international.
yeah, international across Canada. They ended up finishing 13 or 14th, and the team that they beat in the finals of their league finished third or fourth or
Yeah.
something, you know. And it's just kind of a message more for coaches than anything. And maybe teeing it up going into your next part is it's not always about, like you were saying, who the best players are on the team, you know. And another cliche example is in Miracle, when you know, Herb Brooks is picking the team and whatever, and Craig, the assistant coach, is like, "You're missing some of the best players," and he's like, "I'm not looking for the best players. I'm looking for the right ones."
Yep.
You know, and that's a good way to think about your team as a coach, whether you're just starting or you're further along in your coaching career. It's not always about who the best players are, because a lot of times too many good players on the same team is a conflict, you know.
It was when I coached more or less a super team.
That's right. And it's very intuitive to think about, right? Because if you have every guy on your team that wants the puck all the time, or you got 6 guys on your team that are shooters, it's like there's not that many shots that are going to be taken in that game.
Yeah.
You know, not everybody can have the puck all the time. You know, so that's you're creating an environment where there's going to be some conflict. And it's not that it never works out, especially when you're younger. In the younger years, it's easier to get away with. But as you start to get older, having the best players on your team doesn't mean that you're going to have the best team, because a lot of times it'll breed conflict, dressing room conflict between teammates, conflicts between parents.
In youth, the parents start
right? Yeah, I'm talking more particularly about youth. And if you gauge that compared to junior teams or pro teams, none of the teams are like that. There's no super team, right? There's no NHL team that's a super team. There's no junior team that's a super team. There are teams that are better than other teams, but you have your top 6, you have your grind guys, you have your PK guys, you have roles.
Yeah.
Not everybody is just, you have 3-4 lines of guys that can score. You know, that doesn't really happen a lot. And the higher you go, the less it happens.
Yeah, that's right. And it's like when I was coaching in Detroit, we had a really, really good team. And I mean, I couldn't have tryouts. I said, no one's taking these guys' spots. And I didn't have a pulse on the whole. They kind of gave me the team and said, "Here's your team." I said, "Okay, cool." But that's what happened, right? Everybody thought they were the first line center.
Yeah, that's right.
You put someone on a second power play, and mom and dad were losing it. It's like, but they are, and I'm being generous.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's kids that, you know, they were like more of the grinders, and the parents that were the parents of the kids that are supposedly stars. They would lose their shit. They gave someone a captain who was like just a really hard-working leader, actual dressing room leader. His kids all loved him, worked hard through the checks and stuff like that. I gave him the captain, and I had a dad call me and just say, like, I'm not going to use the words, but he said, "Are you trying to piss on my kid?" I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what am I? Well, like, who am I going to pick for a captain? The best hockey player? Who is it, by the way?
Right.
You know, because everyone's really good. So, anyways, it's not fun. In fact, what you want to have is when you're assembling a team, if you can figure this out, is you want to have guys on your team that they know that they're not, or maybe they are the best guy on the team, but they don't care who gets the glory. They're just willing to do the job and really try to win. And that's what you want. Because if you're on my team and you get all the press and you get the all the glory and everyone's talking about you, that's fine. But at the end of the day, did we win? That's what you want, a whole bunch of kids that care about that.
That's right.
That's the most important thing. And if it means I'm a penalty killer but I still think I can score goals, I'll go penalty kill.
Yeah.
All good. Is it good for the team? Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, and that's a hard lesson to teach.
Yeah.
There's enough success for everyone. Like, you don't have, if I do well, It doesn't mean you have to do poorly,
That's right.
and that's what I find on a it's a hard thing for kids to understand is that and this goes to onto the parents too, the coaches, like you have to instill this lesson is there's enough for everyone to be successful when you're playing at any level, but if you're playing youth hockey particularly, it's like if you everybody needs to be successful for the team to be successful, for us to win, for everyone to get attention, which is what most people want because most kids want to go on and play at junior level or whatever afterwards, get drafted, all that kind of stuff. So if you think that your success is going to be limited by someone else on your team being successful, then that's going to cause a problem. And that's to your point of when you were coaching in Detroit, right? You think that because somebody else plays the power play more than you, that that somehow is going to affect your opportunity to show yourself or whatever. It's like, well, if the team is good and the team wins, the scouts watch everybody. They're not watching one guy, If they have a particular guy they're interested in, they'll watch one guy. But at the start, when the scouts first start coming out to watch games, they're seeing everybody. They're looking at everybody, And your amount of power play time or whatever isn't going to make or break you as a player. And you don't need somebody else to not play the power play so that you get to play more, so that you get seen more. That isn't how it works, man. And that's why it's important to have you want to have a good dynamic of guys that understand the role, like you're talking about, whether you're a penalty killer or whether you're a guy that plays shutdown D or whatever. That's why it's important to know what you're good at, do the things you're good at, because not everybody's going to be able to be that the first line player. So opportunity that's going to somebody else doesn't mean you're not getting any.
Yeah.
And that's an easy way that I see that a lot with minor hockey kids and parents. It's like they think that because this kid's getting more, my kid's getting less, and that's not really the dynamic.
It's funny. I had a kid that played on my team in Detroit that wasn't the top. Like he wasn't the top three. He was very close, but in a different way, he was our top one. He wasn't considered the big name.
Right.
See how I did air quotes?
Mm-hmm.
I never do those.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling pretty good. But he wasn't considered the big name.
Yeah.
He was on our team and he had speed and he back checked and forechecked. He wasn't a great goal scorer, but he did penalty kill. Like just, it was impressive, but he was never considered that big name. And he was one of the three that signed. Well, no, I'm trying to think. There was only two guys on that team that signed NHL, drafted and signed NHL, and he was one of them.
Really?
Yep.